Hey everyone, welcome back to Heartcore. I'm Celestina. That's Miko on the other side of the world. What's up, girly?
Hi, Celestina, and hi, everyone listening.
Alrighty, guys. We have an info packed episode for you today. We are going to be looking at all of the returns slash oppositions that can happen in one's lifetime, and it's hefty. It's a lot. Some of them happen annually. Some of them happen every seven-ish or on a 7 year-ish cycle multiplied by several. Um, but several will probably happen in your lifetime. So it's really good to know when change is coming, what that change can be, and understanding how your human design can kind of play into that as well. What are your thoughts on an opening?
Sounds very good, perfect. Also, even the 7 year cycle was mentioned.
Damn, it's like I did my
Weird.
research or something.
Yeah, I was. I was about to say.
I literally listened to all of the podcasts today, all of the podcasts,
Whoa.
and did all of the readings.
Okay, yeah, that's a lot.
Okay, so I think just very quick overview is Saturn returns typically happen in your late 20s to 30s. Uranus oppositions can happen in your late 30s to early 40s. And then your Chiron returns, your 40s entering into your 50s. And then if you make it to your second Saturn return, it's going to be in your 60s. And then if you make it to your third Saturn return, it's going to be in your like late 80s, early 90s, right? So like there's a lot going on and a lot of like consistent change that you're going to be experiencing throughout your life. But let's start with
Solar returns.
solar returns. Start us off, won't you? I feel like I've done so much of the talking already. Oy.
Talked for exactly 2 minutes, and manifestor is
Talked out.
exhausted already.
Oh no.
Okay, a good start to this episode. Yeah, so the solar returns, we didn't really mention those yet, but those are the yearly overviews. So this is one of the, or if not the most important one according to Ra, that you should look at, because it really provides you as a reader the chance to remind the person receiving the reading to stick to their strategy and authority. Because the thing you need to know and understand about all of these cycles is that they give you an influence, another flair to the whole picture. And with the solar returns in particular, it is not a prediction. So when you're having your solar return read, if your year actually happens the way that it shows up in your chart, you have let yourself be influenced by the planets or by the planetary environment. So you really need to understand and grasp your own chart first and follow your strategy and follow your inner authority, because this is how you're going to stay true to you. When you're having a solar return done, the date that you would preferably get that done is actually 3 months before your birthday, because that is your design date. So if you look at your human design chart, you will have your actual birth date and then you will see your design date in time. And this would be the best time to get your solar return done, because it gives you already the preparation of the year, because your design starts 3 months before your actual birthday. And going through solar return chart, the incarnation cross doesn't change, because on you're still receiving the solar return chart from your birth time, basically. So it doesn't change. And there are other things that will change in your chart, which will represent people, for example, that may come into your life, and they also represent challenges that you may face during this new year. You will also see opportunities that come up, but it will also show you how the environment can impact you, how you may feel, even though it kind of deviates you or takes you away from who you are. So you really always need to recalibrate and remind yourself, okay, this is actually who I am, and if you're suddenly an emotional being for this year, for example, and you're usually a not emotional being, your learning in this year is going to be heavily based on the emotional solar plexus. So really letting your emotions flow through you without jumping on the bandwagon of these emotions.
I think this is a really cool approach to exploring like different aspects of yourself instead of like doing a new year, new you, like at the start of the calendar year. I have a friend who he calls it a Josh year because his name is Josh. So he like does this for himself, but like sets like personal goals, less in the hippy dippy world, but more in like the structure and whatnot, and like goals for himself physically or mentally or whatever. And I was like, dude, that's such a good idea. But now linking it back to the solar year, I think it totally makes sense, right? Why not set goals around when you were brought onto this earth? And doing so 3 months ahead of time, yes, is your design date, but it also just gives you time to prep for the year coming ahead and kind of just gives you a couple of insights before your birthday so that when you're going into the start of your solar return on the day that you came into this world, you can set stronger intentions for that year based off of the knowledge that you've garnered over the past 3 months and have had time to like think about it. So yeah, I think it's a really cool time to be able to do that. So embrace the intentions, kind of create a ritual around it. I mean, we have a ritual around birthdays in general, right? Like birthday cake, birthday presents, party, something along those lines. And then just kind of embracing that solar return chart with what you've learned and the knowledge that you've gained from a reading or looking into it yourself. So yeah, it's, I don't know why more people don't do it, is what I'm trying to say.
I agree. I think this is a great tool and technique to prep for your year. I mean, depending on when your birthday is, if it's mid-year, it doesn't have to be on the 1st of January, of course. And we have all been trained to, as you said, make New Year's resolutions, but we are not really preparing for our own rhythm or our own cycle of life. And while the whole year is impacting us, getting an understanding of how it is impacting us personally is so beneficial. It really gives us a lot of power.
Are there particular aspects of one's chart that should be looked at for a solar return?
That is one of the most complex readings because it would be everything. You would look at everything. I mean, everything changes in your chart, and as I said, some planets, like for example Mars or Venus, they represent people that may come into your life, whereas the lower or the planets that are further away or lower down on the human design chart, on the rows next to the human design chart, those would represent situations, events, maybe even collective, like political things that are happening in the world. And everything is important for you to understand it. Of course, when you're doing a solar return, yes, we would go through all the planets, but even there, as you know, when we're giving human design readings, we need a focus. We need to know what that person wants and needs to hear, because it's so vast and we can really get lost in the details of the whole thing. And the reason why Ra kept saying that this is one of the most important ones is because this is, as I said, a yearly reminder of, hey, this is who you are, stay true to that, but these are the things that are going to impact you. And it also means, however, that you will have energies that you can use to your benefit, of course. So for example, if you're a non-sacral being, but for this year you are a sacral being, it provides you with more energy potentially for the year. The things that you would also look for that can be very confusing are the nodes, because the North Node and South Node, they kind of change. They show you the stage that you're on while in your play of life, basically. And it also shows you what you need to do to navigate this stage. And you have the design nodes and you have the south nodes. So they kind of interchange or interact with one another throughout the year. And it would be way too complex to explain the way that it kind of goes back and forth right now without having a visual imagery. But just doing your own solar return, if you're new to human design, is virtually impossible, because you really need to understand the way that a channel that is being created through a solar return would impact you, and how the nodes are interacting with one another. And so it is a very complex reading, but it is a fascinating one.
Okay, very cool. I also read a little bit about 6 lines being affected more so. Is that with a solar return, or are we going to get into that more with different returns?
Different returns.
Okay, cool. Dope.
So one that we could mention here, though, is it's not a cycle or not a return per se, but it's still connected to some sort of a cycle, which is the lunar cycle for reflectors. And for them, they have their own personal cycle every month. Understanding their personal lunar cycle, which would, for example, if you're a reflector and you have gate 25 defined, the other side of that channel would be gate 51. And whenever the moon passes through gate 51, it would create a channel. So it would connect your self and your ego. And this would be an important day for you to tap into what you're feeling, to, if you have an important question that you are asking yourself at the moment, to ask it on these days where these channels are created. And the more that you practice that, the more that you really understand your personal lunar cycle, the more you're going to get to understand how you make decisions. As I say, it's human design is a tool to connect more with your intuition. So it's not the end-all, be-all solution to everything, but I think it's a fantastic tool to learn to trust yourself.
Snaps.
So yeah, I thought that was also a good one to mention, even though it's not really a cycle analysis.
But for you 1% of reflectors out there, you experience it on a monthly basis. So, boom.
Exactly.
And now that you've said that, I have a reflector in my life I see almost every day, and I'm going to kind of see if I can figure out the cycles in his life. Hey, yo.
Yeah. And share it with him if he's interested.
Yeah. I'm excited to observe now. Alrighty.
So would you like to take us to the next one?
I'm going to take us to Saturn. It's a little bit further than the sun. So we're going to go out to the solar system a wee bit. So Saturn is the planet of lessons, often referred to as like the authoritative, the father figure, the like, I'm gonna teach you a lesson kind of vibe. And I mean, it makes sense. If we're having a Saturn return between 27 and 29, we've had our fun in our 20s. And this is the time when either we're going to stay on the same path because it's lighting us up, or we need to like switch some stuff around. And I feel like that is what a Saturn return will do and can do for you. So let's take it from the approach of being in an aligned space already. Dope. Awesome. That means that your Saturn return, not that it's going to be easy breezy, but this will give you some time for reflection and maybe just make some minor tweaks within that world, within that space, if you're feeling aligned in what you're doing, whether that's relationship wise, work wise, a combination of all of the things, life wise. It'll feel less like you just hit a brick wall, right? Also think of this as like a quarter life crisis, because that's kind of the time that it's happening. And if you've experienced a quarter life crisis, it could be that you were going through, or currently are going through, your Saturn return in more of an unaligned way, right? So maybe you've made decisions thus far that have kind of been made willy-nilly, or maybe decisions that you thought that you wanted, or maybe life has just thrown things at you and it's not your cup of tea and it's not that way. This is the time when you can move and shake and change things up in a really significant way, and it may feel scary, or there's things in your world that are happening around you and you're just like, oh my God, I have to rethink life completely now. So there are instances, I would say, like a family member gets sick, if there's a death in the family, this will typically be like an aha moment for people to like change something in their life. Maybe it's their health, maybe it's their job, maybe it's finding more time with family, right? There can be certain things that happen in your world during this time. But really paying attention during this 2+ year time period to what's working and what isn't is really what you're kind of called to do during this time, right? And like learn, grow, and maybe expand out in different ways.
Yeah, and it's the time to take responsibility.
Ooh,
in a
yes.
lot of ways. So the first solar return is often linked to, you need to step up and take responsibility, and the second Saturn return is often seen as you can hand over your responsibility to the next generation. Which I find very strange, though, because on one hand they say that you can hand over the responsibility, but on the other hand, in human design, it is said that we as a species are kind of developing slower, or we're taking more time to really step into our full potential, to live out our life purpose. Especially if you're a 6 line, you must have heard this if you have had a human design reading, that most likely you're only going to really come to flourish and live out your life purpose at around 50 or after the age of 50. So the second the Saturn return is at around 60. But I think 10 years is way too short of a time if you're only really stepping into your power at 50 and then you're supposed to hand over the reins at 60. So that's why I don't really align with this part of the story. But I still wanted to mention it for everyone that is interested. And this is where we also come to the 6 line. So if you do have a 6 line profile, a lot of times your Saturn returns are going to hit you harder than another profile line. So if you don't have a 6 line in your profile, or a number 6 in your profile, if you're new to human design, then often doesn't hit you as hard. So to me, the 30th mark was pretty transformative. Also, although I have to say, for me, it started at around 24, and then the 30th mark was also again a big shift. So it was probably 28, as you said. I don't really know when my Saturn return happened. I would have to check it. And that's also a good point, because it is a rough estimate. So it's around 30. And it can happen at different point in times for everyone, or it will happen at different point in times for everyone. And what Ra had recommended was to actually have your Saturn return read, the chart read, when you're 2 years in, 2 to 3 years into your Saturn return. This is not something that you should be doing before, because after 2 or 3 years, you've already kind of gotten the gist of it, having started to feel what is happening. And with every other return, except for the solar return, you already start to feel it around 1.5 years in advance. So this is also another point, that it's not bam on that day it hits you. It is a gradual movement towards that influence that you're feeling.
I would agree. I think mine happened at 29. Yeah, 29. And like prior to that, I felt like everything that I was doing wasn't the right move. And then after that, / maybe for the next year and a half, I felt like not every decision, but the decisions that I was making were leading me in the right direction. So I feel like that's how I would describe it. But prior to, it was just like dude, why is nothing I'm doing working?
Interesting.
Yeah. And I feel like everything for me focused around like work at that point. Because like relationship wise, stable. Yeah. It was mostly just like work stuff where I felt like I was hitting a wall with everything that I did.
Yeah. Same here. Actually, at around 28, 29, I feel like I had finally found my way. So for me, it was already kind of moving into the direction of, yeah, I finally feel like I've figured it out. This is the direction I want to go into. So I started Opportunity, which was back then called Miko Health, when I was 25.
Oh, wow.
And I think Opportunity came into play at around 28, 29. I would have to check when I actually named it Opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So I'm 3 years into my return now, right? 32. Yeah, 32. Math. And I feel like with the current state of like my employment and like where I'm working, even though it's stressful, it feels so aligned. I don't know how else to explain that, right? Like because I have a team, because I feel I don't feel supported from up above, but I feel supported by my team.
Those last 2 episodes, they shouldn't be listening to that. Just listening to it.
It's fine.
It's fine.
But yeah, it's interesting because I think the thing that I craved as an entrepreneur, solopreneur, was support from others. And I tried to do that through collaboration, and it wasn't always there. So it's interesting to now feel that and be able to truly step into my power. Only today, like real talk, only today does my incarnation cross make sense to me. It was something that like I was like replaying a scene in my head from work the other day. I'm like, oh my God, yeah, the left angle cross of confrontation. Oh my God, it totally makes sense now. How many years have I like explored my design? I'm like, I don't get it. It doesn't resonate. So I think having all of these aha moments, it doesn't always come at once, guys, right? It's something that's going to take time. And hey, yo, 3 years into my Saturn return, I'm figuring out what my incarnation cross actually means. Oy.
That's such a good point, because I think I just wrote a blog about this actually, where I was saying exactly that. So it was about finding your why. Why are you doing something, or why are you not doing something? But it's not just about your why are you doing it, but also about why are you not doing it. So when you're supposed to be doing something that is good for you and that you know is helpful, why are you not doing that? And because I was talking about my self-love journey, and I felt like there were moments where I fell off the horse, and like the self-love horse, I named it that way. And it was in the last months and years, and it was kind of a gradual decline, which I explain in that blog. It's not that relevant right now, but I thought the why and why not, answering these two whys, for me, the why was an embodiment of doing my practices and understanding how they felt and how they made me feel. And this is the only way for me to understand why I was doing it. Because if someone would tell me about it, that you should be doing it because it's good for you, I wouldn't understand it. I wouldn't get it. I maybe understand it from my mental capacity, but I don't embody it. I don't understand it from every cell in my body. And that's exactly the same with my why not. I didn't understand why I wasn't doing it until, I understood it maybe mentally, but I didn't understand it until I was moved into this new apartment, that I felt, okay, I feel grounded, I feel good, and now I can rebuild it. I know the theory behind it, but understanding it from within you is a whole different story. So I think this is a very good point that you just made. These things take time, and it's really an embodiment process. And once you've experienced it in every cell of your body, that's when you can be like, okay, I really get it.
I have some questions one can ask themselves if they are going through or have gone through their Saturn return. Would you like to hear them?
Oh, yes. Very nice.
Cool. So are you really doing what you want to do? Basically living a life that fulfills your dreams, your desires for yourself, right? Like this is a time to be a little bit selfish and like really dig into what you want as a human. Are you lit up by what you're doing? Your heart, your soul, wherever you feel that illumination, if you will. Are you taking responsibility for your life and yourself? That's a big one. And I feel like that's probably like the biggest adulting question ever. Are you happy to continue life in the way that you're currently living it? Are you making the most of it? And what do you truly value in yourself and in others in your life? Ooh, I like just read that out loud. I read it before, but I didn't read it out loud. During my Saturn return, I broke a lot of relationships that were unhealthy and haven't looked back. So, not with my husband, with like friends, former friends.
Very good questions. So, if you're currently going through your Saturn return, sit down and take a moment, a little bit more than a moment, to really reflect on these questions because they're very transformative if you let them be.
And if journaling's not your vibe, maybe try like recording yourself. You can listen back to it, or maybe you don't need to. Again, this kind of also relates to your design, right? As a manifestor, I love just speaking it out and then having it on like a Google Doc to read later. If you are a projector and you just need to hear yourself out there, just speak it out into the world, right? Maybe it's to another human, maybe it's not. Maybe you're just doing it, like recording it on your phone, looking into the mirror, deeply gazing into your eyes. Maybe you need a buddy, but if journaling's your vibe, you can journal too.
Yeah, or just take notes. I mean, just sitting or walking or whatever you want to do, but not even writing, just thinking about these questions can also be helpful. And just take bullet points, like just a word or so that may pop up that you may want to remember to then go back to it. This is something that a lot of us don't do anymore. A lot of people, they just constantly have something blasting, either music or podcasts or TV or Netflix or whatever it may be, or just going out to meet people because they can't be by themselves anymore. So if you don't like to journal, if you don't want to leave a voice message to yourself, then just sit or walk or just be with yourself for a moment and ask yourself these questions. That's already very helpful.
I'm guilty of always having something in my ears. So, great reminder.
Oops.
I started such a good book today, though. Oh, it's called The Sicilian Inheritance, man. Game changer.
Really?
Not even a game changer. It's just a really cute book. And they mentioned the place where I grew up in it. So, like, even cuter. I was sold. Started crying on my walk. It was great.
Oh, my God. That's cute. And she's got, if you're not watching, she's got very curly new haircut, and she looks very Sicilian now.
Just embracing the moisture that's in the air here to letting my curls just do their thing.
I like it.
Thank you. All right, cool. Well, that was Saturn returning. Now into Uranus opposing, or Uranus, however you want to say it. You know? Yeah. You want to start us off?
Okay.
All right.
So,
all right, cool. Okay, so a bit about the Uranus opposition. Think of it as like, jokingly, like a midlife crisis, right? Like oh my God, I just want to quit my job. I'm not really sure if this marriage is it. Should I buy the fast car? Should I date someone younger? Right? That's typically what one thinks of when a midlife crisis occurs. But basically, Uranus is known for change, but extremes of change, breakdowns, breakthroughs, also the awakener, as like shocking and changes can come about. So when it's in opposition, it's literally at the complete opposite point of where it was when you were born, right? So if you're watching this, if it's at the 12 o'clock position, for example, it's at the 6 o'clock position, meaning your opposition. So it can feel confronting, right? Maybe things that have been quelled for a while. You may have to confront something. It can be challenging. It can feel chaotic. And this is typically happening in your late 30s / early 40s. So, yeah, that's a bit of a high level on that. And I know you're going to go way deeper than I just did. So I'm here to listen.
Not necessarily.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Because, it's also kind of goes back to the way that you would read the Saturn return. Just that, yes, as you explained, in this case, it's the Uranus opposition, so it's on the exact opposite side of the chart. In your human design, Uranus represents your unique quirk. So it's really something that makes you weirdly unique in a good way, if you want it to be in a good way. But the midlife crisis is probably the best way to describe the whole situation, because you feel like something needs to change, and understanding having your Uranus opposition read to you gives you a lot of understanding of what you may feel like you want to be pulled towards, or what you're going to be feeling like you want to be going towards. So while you're going through all of this, really always remember your strategy and your authority and who you are. So I hope by that point you have gone through self-reflective practices. It can be journaling, it can be yoga, it can be meditation, it can be mindfulness. I mean, meditation is the next level. It's not really self-reflective practices. I could go on to a really big tangent here into the wrong direction, but I'm trying to catch myself here, because it depends what you consider the self. Yeah. Anyways, if you have really practiced these techniques, you have already gained a better understanding of who you are. And that is regardless of human design. Human design can help you, but you don't necessarily need it. I always also say that. But I find it also an important point, because human design is still a mental practice. It's still something you're learning with your mind if you're not embodying it, if you're not practicing it. And so for me, the important part is really doing things that turn you inward. And for that, you can use human design, but you don't necessarily have to. And I think that if you're at the point of being approximately 40 and you've done a lot of the work, you've already gotten a deeper understanding of who you truly are. And even if you're then going to go through midlife crisis and have these feelings of, I need to change and pivot 180 degrees of my life, throw everything overboard and go to Costa Rica and live in a hut or something, you still need to see whether this is really what you should be doing, or if it's just the midlife crisis, like the Uranus opposition pulling you towards that direction. So that's where these readings can be super beneficial for you.
And how much of that is like using your strategy and authority to kind of navigate that piece of it as well? The understanding of like, is this the Uranus opposition, or do I actually need to implode and rise from it, you know?
Everything. It's everything, because no matter what question you have, and even there, I wouldn't even say you need human design. You just need to understand and be able to have deciphered how your intuition is speaking to you.
Yeah.
Human design is just extremely beneficial in my opinion, because it has helped me understand, okay, I need to wait for invitation, and this is super helpful. I'm not joking. This is, for me, it has made such a big difference to follow my strategy, which is, as a projector, I need to wait for invitation, and then not just take every and all invitations, but to listen to my heart. What is it that I really want? What is it that is going to be good for me? What is my heart burning for? This is like what is giving me this, okay, I'm super passionate about it, and yes, I really want to do it. It's kind of, yeah, as we describe it all the time, it's like this Care Bear energy. So
my Pez thing that you got me is a little bit out of reach right now, but I think I need to leave it on my desk going forward. And every time we mention it, I'm just going to take a Pez out and have one.
Okay, cool. Yes. So I bought her a Pez dispenser that's like a Care Bear for everyone that doesn't know. Purple. Okay.
Love it.
Yeah, I think human design is just helping you to understand your intuition better. But you can also get there through other means. It's just that, and there have also been experiments done on intuition, and I just think that even understanding if someone is calibrated well enough to understand and hear their intuition, that is already the first challenge. Because I don't think that everyone that speaks of intuition, quote unquote, is able to literally decipher whether that's their intuition or if it's their mind or whatever else it may be. So with everything, it always comes back down to your intuition.
Well said.
Thank you. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I also found human design, actually it was during my Saturn return, or like right before my Saturn return. So yeah, it's helpful as a tool, but I think it just gives you different tools to understand yourself better. So totally agreed. Last but not least, the Chiron return. Start us off.
Chiron return. So Chiron is known as the wounded healer. And Chiron is the point in time, so it's around 50s, and it's the point in time where, especially for a 6 line, again, it can be very impactful. So Ra also said that a 6 line should have their Chiron return read. The other lines, it's not as important, but for a 6 line, it seems to be very important. It's also the moment of time where the 6 line is coming back down from the roof, quote unquote. So it's if you're new to human design and you don't know what the 6 line goes through, it's basically from 0 to 30 approximately, or 0 to Saturn return. The first one is when you're just going through a 3rd line phase. Then from your first Saturn return to your Chiron return is approximately when you go onto the roof and you're observing everything around you. So the first 30 years is about doing it yourself, experimenting yourself, going through all the challenges yourself. And the second phase of your life is about looking how everyone else is doing their thing in life and what works and what doesn't work for them. And then when you come back down from the roof at around 50, this is where you start to be able to help others with all the knowledge that you have acquired, to help others understand what they should or should not be doing. And this is not by you imposing it on them, but it's in a role model position. So a 6 line is always about being a role model, and that usually starts around 50. You can already be a role model before that, and I do notice that. I feel like people are looking at me and observing me in a lot of ways. I mean, I'm not saying on Instagram, but also offline, where I feel like they have this expectation. And I only really understood that in human design. And it's really, whenever I do something, I'm being observed, and I feel being observed. So it's not that I would say I'm a role model per se, but I know that because what I'm doing, I have to be, and I feel like there's an immense pressure of being authentic and being like preaching
Practicing what you're preaching.
Practicing what I'm preaching, yeah.
Question though, because you have a penetrating aura, so I wonder how much of that is like your projectoriness, just being like, woo, out in the world. Like, not like a look at me kind of thing, but like when you're around people, it just like hits them, you know? Versus me, I got a big ass aura and it like keeps people away. So I wonder, I don't know if I've ever witnessed other people observing me. I'm going to take note of this now.
Yeah.
But I wonder if it has anything to do with aura stuff. Whereas David, my husband, is also a 6'2", also in his third-ish, fourth-ish year of his Saturn return. I think his happened a year earlier than mine. Lucky. Anyway, but it was cool to see him flourish in his Saturn return. Okay, back on track. I think people do observe him, though, which is interesting. So he's a generator. I didn't mention that. But I wonder. I'm going to take note of that now. Because I don't think I don't.
Or maybe it's, yeah. No, I think I would love to hear, I would love to compare notes on this. I'd find it interesting. Yeah. And I only really realized this because it's things like when I'm around people and I put on my makeup, then the people are looking exactly how I put on my makeup, or it's just, it's yeah. That's just one example, but I do feel observed a lot of times. Even when I go to the gym, I don't really like going to the gym because I feel like people are observing me and maybe it's all in my head. But I don't know. Yeah, I would love to hear how you feel in the next few weeks when you're observing this.
Interesting. Yeah, I will keep you updated. I'll keep you guys updated too, because I feel like I walk through the world with RBF, and not that I'm invisible, but like I just do it, you know?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to do some research, take notes on my phone, and report back.
Cool. Thank you.
By do research, I mean live my life and report back.
Best research.
Ayo.
So yeah, you also, for Chiron return, you also kind of have to have worked on yourself a lot as well. Because this is, as it says, the wounded healer. So figure out your core wound and work on it. Otherwise, it's going to come back and kick your butt during your Chiron return. So that's a little bit about Chiron return. A little bit.
Well,
yeah. And then we had already talked about the Saturn second return, and the Uranus return, the actual return, happens at around 80. We forgot to mention regarding Uranus opposition is that this is also when the nodes shift. So in your first half of your life, up to the age of 40 approximately, this is where you're living out the South Node's themes in conscious and unconscious, or design and personality. And after around 40, so after the Uranus opposition, this is when you're moving towards the North Node theme.
Amazing. And we've talked about that. I don't know the episode, but we have talked about all of the planets, and we mentioned both of the nodes as well. So definitely go back and listen to that episode as well. I think it's split up into 2, but the nodes are part of the first episode. So go back, have a listen. Trying to re-promo our stuff, man. You know, that's what's up.
Good job.
Just listen to us in your ear holes all the time on your walks. And then when you need a moment by yourself, you can take us out of your head and you can walk and listen to the birds and then think about the journaling prompts for your Saturn return. You're welcome.
On that note, do you have anything else to add?
No, I think we did a great job today, and I would love to know what you guys think as well. If you love it, leave a 5-star review, leave a comment, hit us up on Instagram at Hardcore Podcast on Instagram.
Hardcore HD.
Hardcore HD on Instagram. I'm good. Alrighty, guys.
Well, thank you very much for listening. Thank you for your time, Celestina. It was a pleasure again.
Always. Toodly doodles.
Bye.
Bye, guys.